Hey everyone, Tim here with SaxHQ.com. We're going to be talking about the parts of a saxophone mouthpiece today, why they're so important, what you need to know so that you understand what to look for when buying a mouthpiece, and how these parts will affect your playing. But before we do that, let's take off the ligature. This is what holds the reed onto the mouthpiece, and we'll remove the reed itself so that we can look at the anatomy of the mouthpiece, these very parts. Now, starting at the top, we'll see it's the first part is called the tip. This is the thinnest part of the mouthpiece. It comes down at an angle, actually has an angle on the top coming down, and at the bottom you'll see a slight angle going upwards. It'll affect the facing of the mouthpiece, as we'll talk about it a little later. But moving downwards, the second part is called the baffle. The baffle is often called the roof of the chamber, roof of the mouthpiece chamber, and the shape of it can really vary greatly between mouthpieces, causing it to have a bright or a dark sound, and that's the area called the baffle. Now, this cutout area is called the window. I'll talk about two parts, the window and the side rails, because they both play hand in hand with the reed. The reed sits right on top of the window, and it seals so that the air can come right through the tip and out through the chamber. And the side rails here keep the air from coming out the side. And that's all it does, and it's good to know for just the anatomy of the mouthpiece. Moving to the front of the mouthpiece, it's called the beak. This is where your top lip and your teeth will rest. In fact, I've got a mouthpiece pad on that so my teeth won't scratch the mouthpiece itself. And it starts at the body, moves down towards the tip. It's all called the beak. I mentioned the facing earlier. The sixth part of a mouthpiece is what's called the facing, and it's easier to see when the reed's on there. That gap in between the mouthpiece tip and the reed is what's called the facing. When you place a reed on the mouthpiece and the gap is quite wide, then you'll have a harder time blowing air through unless you had a softer reed. So that's how you can adjust the facing of a mouthpiece, by having a little softer of a reed. The floor of the mouthpiece, real simple. This is that back end where it's really flat. Again, the reed floor will sit right against that reed, the mouthpiece floor, and it'll keep the air from moving out so that you don't have little whispers of sound coming through. The chamber of the mouthpiece is this open area. Actually, it's a little easier to see from back here. It's the area of the mouthpiece behind the floor. It's where the sound resonates. A large chamber will create a fat and mellow sound, while a smaller chamber will create a more focused sound that's a little bit brighter. Moving downward, the bore, this end right here, often called the shank, is what the mouthpiece will fit onto the saxophone neck on. There's a cork on the saxophone neck that fits right into the saxophone mouthpiece, not letting any air escape from the sides. And finally, the throat of the mouthpiece. It's a little easier to see back through the chamber. On this mouthpiece, it's a square throat. This is a Selmer C-Star, and you'll see that square area down there. It can often be square, round, or half round, and the throat's considered between the area between the chamber and the bore of the mouthpiece, and so that's this area back into here. So we've covered these areas of the mouthpiece. For more information on saxophone lessons, and other resources, visit www.saxhq.com.